Now, you would think that Joe Biden would have learned by now that if there are two things he simply could not do as a presidential candidate, they are continuing to put his hands on those of the opposite sex and presenting other people's ideas as his own. But old Uncle Joe has now revived both those issues in recent days. First, putting his arm around a 10-year-old girl for a picture and then making light of all those women he creeped out with his handsy conduct. And then we discover that his campaign copied and pasted the exact words of certain environmental organizations on their website without attribution, ripping open an old wound from the first of Biden's two previous and disastrous presidential campaigns. That would be 1987, when he was forced to withdraw from the presidential race after it was discovered that he plagiarized a speech by British politician Neil Kinnock almost word for word. Here it was, 32 years ago.
Why is it that Joe Biden is the first in his family ever to go to a university? Why is it that my wife, who's sitting out there in the audience, is the first in her family to ever go to college?
Why am I the first Kinnock to be able to get to university? Why is Gladys the first woman in her family? Was it because they were weak? Those people who could work 8 hours underground and then come up and play football? Weak?
My ancestors who worked in the coal mines in northeast Pennsylvania and who come up after 12 hours and play football for 4 hours?
Anybody really think that they didn't get what we had because they didn't have the talent or the strength or the endurance or the commitment? Of course not. It was because there was no platform upon which they could stand.
No, it's not because they weren't as smart. It's not because they didn't work as hard. It's because they didn't have a platform upon which to stand.
So the P word, plagiarism, rears its ugly head again for the bumbling Democratic frontrunner in a mistake that had even Trump-hating elite media types like Chuck Todd at NBC and Jake Tapper at CNN calling Biden's campaign amateur hour.
Joe Biden has his name on a public policy institute at the University of Pennsylvania. He's been preparing to run for president at least for the last 18 months, perhaps longer than that, in different ways. Why are they cutting and pasting climate change proposals at the last minute? Is this a sloppy campaign? Are they not up and running? What's going on?
This was obviously a junior varsity moment for this campaign in what should be very much the varsity level squad. It's embarrassing.
This is a pretty amateur mistake for the frontrunners campaign to make on a substantial policy rollout when they had to know, when Team Biden got together planning to announce his campaign, the one thing they cannot do is plagiarize.
But if being criticized by his friends in the elite media wasn't enough, Biden's big but somewhat dwindling lead in the 24-person presidential primary race has now made him a magnet for attacks from the other 23 candidates, all to his left, who are decrying his relatively moderate positions as insufficiently radical on climate change, among other issues. Here are Bernie, Pocahontas, and Mayor Pete.
We cannot go back to the old ways. We have got to go forward with a new and progressive agenda. We have got to make it clear that when the future of the planet is at stake, there is no middle ground.
Our country is in a time of crisis. The time for small ideas is over.
The riskiest thing we could do is try too hard to play it safe.
Now, another issue the other Democratic presidential candidates will use against Biden is abortion, after Biden reaffirmed his longstanding support for the Hyde Amendment, which prohibits the use of federal funding for abortions. As Matthew Continetti of the Washington Free Beacon said on Fox News, this is yet another issue sure to tail Biden throughout this primary full of far-left candidates.
This is a Biden test because even though Democrats, of course, oppose the Hyde Amendment and taxpayer funding of abortion, the public at large actually supports Hyde Amendment. They oppose taxpayer funding for abortion. This is revealed in polls by Marist on the abortion issue every year, including this one. So here's Biden's conflict between appealing to the Democratic base, which has moved left on this question and others, and a general election candidacy where support for the Hyde Amendment would not harm him.
Indeed, that is a question Joe Biden will likely ask himself probably every day for as long as he remains atop the Democrats' presidential field. How far left will I have to go to win the nomination without setting myself up for a mighty fall in the head-to-head general election race against President Trump?